Hi, my name is Linda Herrera, and today I will be sharing with you a couple biochemistry related problems and how I went about solving them. First, I want to go over case 3 with you. A 5-year-old boy is brought to the pediatrician's office for an annual visit. The mother reports he has been a sickly infant and often appears drowsy. She also has concerns over her son's persistent thirst and frequent urination. Blood samples are taken for insulin measurements at time 0 and 1 hour after a glucose loading test. The results of this testing are illustrated in the table below, and the table shows that the baseline blood sample at time 0 is 0.8 microunits per liter of serum insulin, and the sample that was taken 1 hour after a glucose load was 5 microunits per liter. The first question asks, what is the information likely to suggest about the underlying biochemical basis for the patient's symptoms? The results are likely to suggest type 1 diabetes mellitus, or IDDM as abbreviation, which is also nicknamed juvenile diabetes as it is usually diagnosed in children and adolescents. The patient appearing drowsy with persistent thirst and frequent urination are common symptoms of this disease, but symptoms alone are not enough information for a diagnosis, so it is important to see a physician right away to do blood testing, as the results may become more severe or lead to death if left untreated. Luckily, this boy's mother has done just that, and we have been given the results of the blood sample looking at insulin levels. Serum insulin levels for the baseline blood sample was 0.8 microunits per liter, which is well below the control range of 4 to 8 microunits per liter. Also, the patient's serum insulin levels taken 1 hour after glucose administration was quite low at 5 microunits per liter, when the control level are 29 to 51 microunits per liter, indicating impaired glucose tolerance as a result of decreased secretion of insulin due to progressive destruction of pancreatic beta islet cells, which could be a cause of IDDM. The second question asks, what would you predict the patient's fasted blood glucose levels to be given his current condition? I would predict that the child's fasted blood glucose levels would be above normal. The reason being is that the hormone insulin plays a central role in regulating blood glucose. In the patient's case, his insulin levels are below normal, leading me to believe that there will not be sufficient insulin to regulate blood glucose, and this will allow blood glucose levels to rise. The last question for this case asks, list 2 regulatory enzymes that are likely to be active in this individual's current condition. Remembering and looking through the textbook for clarification, 2 regulatory enzymes that are likely to be active in this individual an individual with diabetes would be pyruvate carboxylase and phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase. Both of these enzymes are repressed by insulin. In the patient's case, his insulin levels are quite low, so both pyruvate carboxylase and phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase levels would be elevated. The next case, case 4, gives us this scenario. A previously healthy 2-month-old female presents with jittery spells several hours after breastfeeding. Her mother reports she has not given the baby anything to eat other than breast milk since birth. The baby has only recently been sleeping for more than 2 hours before feedings, and that's when the mother reports these symptoms started. Laboratory results are consistent with hypoglycemia, but otherwise unremarkable. Epinephrine is administered, and there is no increase in blood glucose, but there is an increase in blood lactate. We are then given some extra information that a physical exam has confirmed hepatomegaly and that the child's blood glucose levels increase after feeding but cannot be maintained. The question asks, based on the information above, which of the following is the most likely diagnosis of this patient? We are given 4 options: hereditary fructose intolerant, galactosemia, glycogen storage disease, and glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. Based on the information given, I would say the most likely diagnosis for this patient would be glycogen storage disease. There are a few reasons why I chose this answer. The epinephrine administered did not increase blood glucose, but it did increase blood lactate. Epinephrine increases glycolysis and gluconeogenesis, which induces an upsurge in lactate. The information also stated that blood glucose levels increase after breastfeeding, but that the child cannot maintain blood glucose levels within normal range during fasting, which would point towards a deficiency of the enzymes of glycogen metabolism. This would affect the cells of the body's ability to store and use glycogen, and as a result, regulation of blood glucose levels can be impaired during short-term fasting and cause hypoglycemia. The patient may go into hypoglycemic shock in between feeds and while sleeping, which is causing the jittery spells that the mother is seeing several hours after breastfeeding the child and while the child sleeps. Also, when looking at the glycogen storage diseases chart in the textbook, type 3A seemed as if it fit our patient, as the clinical features stated: fasting hypoglycemia and hepatomegaly in infancies, which was given in the information above. When reading the prompt for the first time, I saw breastfeeding and my mind went straight to galactosemia, but the classical symptoms of this disease, such as galactitol accumulating in the lens of the eyes, was missing, and that galactosemic individuals are still able to form UDP galactose to form glucose, but in this patient, hypoglycemia was found. Furthermore, galactosemia is part of the newborn screening test, or NBS, so it would most likely have been detected at birth. Hereditary fructose intolerance could not have been a correct option for this case, as the mother has been solely breastfeeding. Breast milk contains lactose, a disaccharide made up of glucose and galactose, and no fructose. So there would not have been any fructose in the diet to see if it were an intolerance to fructose. Lastly, I ruled out glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency, as it causes acute hemolysis of red blood cells, resulting in hemolytic anemia, which was not mentioned in the signs or symptoms. Also, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is involved in the pentose phosphate pathway, and this pathway in the book did not include the hormone epinephrine as having an impact of the pathway. We are now finished, so I hope you learned something new, that you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening.